Hello and welcome to Conversations with Grace. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Luke Gray and he's the director of Periscope Media, which is a digital marketing company based in my beautiful hometown of Adelaide. So welcome, Luke, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much, Grace, for having me. Really excited to be on here and catching up. So it should be good. Yeah.
Okay, so you're an entrepreneur. But let's go back before that. What were you actually doing before you got very successful with your company?
So yeah, it was actually really weird. I was actually just having a breakfast with someone before this, and I was sort of telling the story about how I was actually doing petroleum engineering, something very different to digital marketing. So I was sort of when I finished high school, I took a gap year after high school, and then I went and started a petroleum engineering degree at the Adelaide University. I got 2 years through that. And then this was back in sort of 2015. I had a very big sort of like life-changing moment essentially, where I was just all of a sudden really started to question, what I was doing. And it was a very surreal sort of period for me because I was very immersed in my degree and I'm going to be an engineer, and I guess my reasoning for deciding on what to do after high school, I mean, look, when you're in high school, you're still figuring out who you are. And it's such a weird sort of period to sort of know what you want to do. And so 2 years through my engineering degree, I had a bit of a life-changing moment. And I actually came across Tai Lopez, which a lot of people would know. So one of his ads popped up right at the perfect time. It was like almost like a universal type moment when I started to question everything at university, and Ty comes on and his ad is like, hey, if you want to, do all this stuff, you got to drop out of college. And I'm not saying to everyone that uni's bad, but for me, it wasn't for me. I guess my reasoning for why I chose what I chose wasn't sound. And so I came across Ty, and then before you know it, I started really getting into, self-development, but started really getting into the business realm and had no idea what I wanted to do. Until I started really exploring various, gurus and whatnot, and it sort of led me to a particular program, which you and I sort of know each other through, Grace, which is OMG Machines, and so that sort of led me to that. And for my first year of building out my company, I was actually working at Flight Centre as well to try and support and sort of fund what I need to do. And before you know it, I broke away from that in sort of 2016-ish, and then sort of went full time into my business from there. So it's a bit of background for you.
Awesome. So just explain to people, a lot of people are not quite sure what a digital marketing agency does and what SEO is, which is search engine optimization. When I first heard it, when I first joined OMG Machines, I thought, what on earth is that?
Yeah.
So can you explain what you actually do with clients?
Of course. Yeah. So I actually heard about SEO it was really weird. Right before I joined OMG, I remember hearing about the concept of SEO. I was like, oh, what's this SEO thing I keep hearing about? Bit of a buzzword and in the online space. And, it stands for search engine optimization for people that don't know. And essentially it's being able to rank or position a website in front of what we call keywords. So to give people an example, and I'll go into digital marketing as well, what we do at Periscope. But essentially what we do is we work with a lot of local businesses primarily. Now we're starting to actually get our foot in the door with a lot of bigger companies like, casinos in Australia and are starting to sort of branch out to that. Not just casinos, but just like branching out to the travel industry. But essentially what we do to keep it simple is, let's just say we're working with a local plumber here in Adelaide. So we work with other businesses. We grow their businesses online through Google. And so we'll go out there and we'll find, using, certain tools, like go find, what we call keywords, which are essentially search phrases that connect a potential buyer to a business. So if we've got a plumber here in Adelaide, we'll go out and do research. We might find that the word plumber Adelaide gets searched, 1,000 times a month. Now, if you're positioned in the top 2 or 3 for that particular, phrase consistently month in, month out, it's going to be a hell of a lot of, phone calls and leads and ultimately sales for that business. And so search traffic is very powerful because people are coming with an intent to buy already. They know what they're looking for, and Google has such a trust, has accumulated so much trust over the years when it comes to dictating what people do. And, consumers love making their own decisions these days. So they go to Google, they type in a search, and it's my job to make sure our clients are positioned in the top 3 for words that are going to connect, their potential buyers to their business. So that's a bit of a summary. At Periscope, we use that. Obviously, digital marketing is a bit of as a whole, that could involve, Facebook advertising, it could involve Google ads, SEO, website design, etc. So we focus on SEO, and we also over the last sort of year and a half really started to evolve the website design part of the business, because obviously the first part is getting traffic to the website, which is what essentially SEO does, is getting people to the website. But once they're on the website, you need to essentially need to be able to make that person pick up the phone and call now. And so you want to make sure you have a very high converting website as well. So it's sort of the full circle in a sense, getting the traffic and then turning that traffic into buyers. So yeah, we focus on those two aspects of digital marketing.
Okay. Yeah. So what is it? What do you know what the percentage is of online users that don't actually go past page 1?
Well, there's actually a really good graph. I don't have it in front of me, but essentially it goes something like this. So let's just say you've got 1,000 people searching for a particular term. You've got to have around, so if we're talking organically, so just for people that don't know, in a basic search result in Google, you're going to have, at this point in time in 2020, you've got 4 ads at the top, right? All right, then you've got usually 4 map listings, so like Google Maps. And sometimes people can run ads as well above that. So sometimes you might have 1 ad and 3 essentially map listings below that. Then you've got 10 spots below that, okay, organically. So in total, you're sort of looking on page 1 at around 17 sort of spots. And so, and then below the organic part down the bottom, you've also got another, like usually 3 ads as well. And so based on like the data that we have, and from what's out there as well, the top organic spots are right below the ads, which is where so right below the maps, which is where we focus on. If you get around about 32% of people are going to click on that top spot. Okay, then it goes down to 15%. All right, to the second, 10% to the third, and it really starts to drastically drop. So even beyond page 1, isn't enough. Like if you're sitting at the bottom of page 1. You might get a bit here or there depending on how, I guess, high the word is searched. If you're getting obviously 20,000 people searching for a keyword a month, some of them are going to go to the bottom of page 1. But, when you're looking at those smaller numbers, it's really, really important that you want to be positioned in that top 3. So then you obviously get a portion of the traffic that goes to the ads at the top. You get a portion of traffic that goes to the maps. And then that breakdown, which I just showed you, which is where we focus on. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, before I got into SEO, I only never noticed that the top 2 or 3 were ads.
Yeah.
I just thought, oh, gee, they're number 1. We'll click on that. But they're actually ads because I never noticed a little ad.
Well, it used to be a lot more obvious with Google because they used to have the ad part filled in with a solid green. And so
don't make it so obvious now.
Yeah, and now because they obviously want people to spend more on ads, right? That's how Google make their money, right? Is through people paying to advertise on their platform. Like Google hates people like me, like where they don't get nothing from me, right?
No, that's
right. And so it's now they've sort of got the ad part not filled in, and so it's a lot harder to see. So people are searching, they're actually getting a high click-through rate now, ads. And so, but yeah, like a lot of people that you speak to will scroll past the ads out there, sort of aware of it, but it's still valuable to be in the top for the ads, but it's more of a band-aid fix for a business as opposed to a long-term strategy that really pays dividends down the track.
So do you work on the Google Maps as well? Is that good to be on page 1 for Google Maps?
It's very valuable, but what we've found is that, so as an example, let's just say we're going for a particular keyword like plumber Adelaide. Back 3 or 4 years ago, you would rank, if you rank in the maps, it would be essentially number 1 across, the whole of Adelaide, right? But now Google is getting a lot more specific on showing map listings that are more closer to the user. So if I'm in the south of Adelaide, right, and I'm searching plumber Adelaide, the map listings are going to be very skewed to people that are based down south, right? Or if you're in Melbourne or Sydney. And so the algorithm's a lot harder to go for. Like, we'll rank our clients in their particular area in the maps, because like Google pick up the location and the map, that particular business is situated in that area. But as soon as you start searching outside of the area where your client's in, this isn't the same for the organic results below. Like, if we rank for plumber Adelaide, I can have that across the whole of Adelaide, no matter where you are. So.
Oh, okay. So there's a little bit of tweaking to do, to make sure that they're in the right place.
Yeah, 100%.
So can you give me a couple of success stories that you've had with your clients, what they've achieved as far as, change in revenue and so forth?
For sure. Yeah. I was actually just on a call the other day with one of our clients. So he's a home builder here in Adelaide, actually. I won't mention who it is, but if you go on the website, you probably better figure it out. He's actually got he's actually got a pretty good testimonial for us. But essentially, they were doing, so I won't say the exact numbers. I'll give you some ideas. So they were doing in the tens of millions, I guess, range when they started with us, because that was back in 2017, and they hit the top spot really for the last sort of like 12 months. They've really start to solidify themselves in the top 3 for some pretty major terms. And we've taken that business from doing, let's just say, as an example, trying to be careful and not to disclose figures, but essentially, okay, I'll say they're in the tens of millions range, right, per year. We've been able to more than double their company's revenue. So we're talking tens of millions of dollars a year have coming just from ranking for 1 or 2 major terms. And so, so already doing tens of millions, been able to double that, more than double that. And he called me up the day. He's like, dude, we can't keep up. Like, it's just, radically changed, the scope of his business. And, he took a leap of faith with me when I was a bit earlier on, actually, in the journey, and we clicked. And he's just such a good guy. He actually sells for us now, like, not actually working within Periscope, but like when people were thinking about coming on board with our company, we've got that good of a relationship with him. We say, hey, go speak to, such and such, and he will get on the phone and sell them for us and whatnot. So that's one story. We've got quite a number of stories similar to that. We work with, all different types of industries. So it's home builders, demolition companies, air conditioning contractors. We work with like the Hobart Casino. At the moment, we've worked with Port Power, AFL, done some SEO for them. Sort of whole range of different. Got a lot in the travel industry as well. That's sort of a quick little success story for you there.
There is nothing like word of mouth, is there?
Yeah, it's so powerful. Like, especially in Adelaide as well, where as you would know, Grace, it's a very sticky sort of city where everyone sort of knows if someone doesn't know a person, like their friend probably knows them. It's like that sort of thing. And so it's very important to everyone should be fulfilling on agreements regardless of whether their reputation is going to be damaged, because it's just based on the fact that they're paying the money. But yeah, reputation becomes very important in a city like this. And so we've actually managed to really venture out of Adelaide, which is what we've had to do to really open up our scope of our clients. Is that, we've actually probably got around 80% of our clients interstate, and around sort of 20% of them, in Adelaide, and really started to venture into America now. We've got about 4 or 5 clients in America and New Zealand as well. And the US is a sort of the next sort of chapter of our company. Yeah,
that's the great thing about having a digital marketing agency. You can actually have clients anywhere, literally anywhere. You could be sitting at home on your computer working on their website in your pajamas,
100%.
It's the way of the technology now. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty beautiful. Even throughout Corona, I went away for a bit, and I sort of ventured down south, and you just take your laptop with you. We've got an office here in the city, which it's not really getting used that much these days. Actually, like since Corona, I've got a few of my guys are situated all around Adelaide, and some live in the Barossa Valley. And so we've sort of been able to, through Corona, it's forced us to move things quite virtual, and it's actually been really efficient for the business. And so we've actually, found it to be really quite good. But we do have an office. It's actually across the road from where I'm living at the moment. And
that's a long drive.
It's a long drive. And I barely go in these days as well. So it's the beauty of digital marketing. I remember when I've been to America quite a few times since I started, being an entrepreneur, just to go visit some of the people I'm connected with, people Grace, and so even I remember the first moment I had over there when I landed a client in America, like not an actual American client, but I landed a client back in Australia whilst I was in America. And I remember that was back in 2017. That was a very surreal moment for me. I'm like, I'm making money whilst I'm over in America right now. A very, very cool feeling. So
it's an amazing occupation, the things you can do. Can I just go back to the example of the client that's done really well?
Yeah.
How long on average, how do you work out, or how do you tell a client how long it's actually going to take, an estimate of how long it's going to take for them to get to page one?
Cool. Really good question. It's one that we answer sort of every single day. And so if anybody's telling, this is a little tip for anybody, if anyone's watching this that's about to engage in an SEO company, if they're telling you how long something's going to take before they've done any keyword research, then I definitely wouldn't advise to go with them. SEO and in particular timeframes all matters on the distinctions that are in place. Essentially, the biggest bottleneck, with SEO, it's actually a pretty cool way of looking at it. It's not about beating Google, right? It's not about beating Google and taking on Google. It's about beating the person who's above you, right? And so doing SEO better than the person above you. So it's never about beating Google. That's a massive issue I hear a lot, is where people are, trying to beat Google, but it's like you're trying to beat the person above you. As you can imagine, it's very easy to rank for a brand name. So it's very easy to rank for your name, Grace, right?
Which
you can
I
build
have.
a web. Yeah, that's
I'm
it.
the
So
only Grace Chivell, apparently.
for sure, right? And so that's an example where SEO is because you're the only one going for it. SEO is about beating who's above you. There's no one above you going for that word, so you rank very quick. Now, when you start going into more competitive markets and you got 100 businesses going for one word, right? So when we talk about timeframes, it's going to be based on a few factors, like, okay, where's the business currently ranked right now for the word we're trying to go after? Okay, so where are they currently ranked? If they're sitting on page 10 versus page 2, it's going to be different. If you've got, depends on how many people are trying to go for that word. If there's 100 people versus 5, I'm going to rank a lot quicker. So it varies from industry to industry and city to city. As you can imagine, ranking in Sydney versus, Ballarat, it's a very different story. Okay, so when we take on a client, we've got to sort of zoom in on their distinct scenario to figure out how long it's going to take. But on average, I'll just give you like a ballpark figure. On average, our local clients will take around 12 months to sort of get to that top 5 spot on Google for their major term that we're trying to target. Some, like I said, but some shoot up a lot quicker, if they've got other factors going for them, and some might actually take a touch longer, but on average, that 12-month mark is what you got to wait. And that's the bottleneck with SEO, and why people can sometimes be turned off from it is they want the fruit, all right? They want the ROI now. But
they think it's going to take a couple of weeks to do.
For sure, yeah. And it's like, and this is why we love to work with businesses who are quite stable, because they're not reliant on solely us to get leads for them initially. Instead, if they've got other avenues of, leads coming in, we can just go about our work. Like that building company, for instance, he just said, Luke, do your thing. Right? It didn't bother me, and didn't, obviously very want to know what was happening, but he wasn't after 3 or 4 months, I want to, why aren't we on page 1 yet? What's going on? And so the people that wait it out get rewarded with this, as long as we're the right company that can actually fulfill on the work. That's a different story about a company who's not fulfilling on work, but as long as you can wait it out, it can, and the keywords have been selected correctly, it's going to be really great for that business. So that's a bit of a long-winded answer for around 12 months.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
So, I know that SEO's changed a lot since many years ago where, but then Google caught onto everybody, how they were sending all these links. So do you have a certain pace you do it at,
Yeah,
sending links to their website?
totally. Yeah. So for people that don't know what a backlink is, so imagine you've got got, what's the advertiser in Melbourne called, Grace?
The Herald.
Okay, the Herald. Okay, let's say the Herald, they've got a website, I'm pretty certain, and they write an article, on their website, how to find the best plumber in Melbourne. They might write an article. I'm sure they haven't written this article, but let's just use it for the scenario.
Yep.
And in that article somewhere, there's going to be, they might link out to a local plumbing business in Melbourne. And so that text, right, with the hyperlink that links to the client, that's called a backlink, right? So when it comes to ranking for a particular word and competitive keywords, we're trying to essentially make the website look as authoritative as possible to Google. They want to be returning, results that are from essentially trustworthy websites that are relevant, trustworthy, authoritative. And so that's essentially what we're doing in the SEO game, is we're trying to manipulate Google search engine to make our client look like the most authoritative website on Google for that particular word we're trying to go for. And so in that process, everything we're doing when we're building up the authority is we're trying to keep it as human as possible. Okay. So when I say human as possible, like, we want to make it look as natural as possible. So to answer your question, the link building process, you really want to sort of start it off quite slow and build out a lot of very safe sort of links. We call them if you work with a local business, we'll start off by sending a lot of citation and business directory type links and social profiles and social media profiles to really protect the site before we start coming in with a lot more powerful type links once we've got a really beautiful padding around the website. And so, to starting off the process, it starts off slower and we gradually build it up with time. Yeah. And it gets a lot safer to link build more aggressively when a website hits the first page as well. That's another thing.
Yeah. So it's basically getting other websites to talk about your client's website.
Totally.
Yeah. So basically, the more you have of the people talking about your site, Googlebot, which is, if people don't know, there's a little Googlebot that goes around and checking all the websites. It goes back and reports and says, oh, this guy's pretty good. This guy in Adelaide, he's a plumber and everybody's talking about him. So let's move him up. So basically,
totally.
Simplified term.
It's simplified, and it's good that you say that, because it's how a business sort of gains credibility in the real world. For instance, let's say you got a cafe down the street. If the owner stands out the front of his cafe and says, I'm the best cafe in Adelaide, yet nobody's in there drinking the cafe, no one's talking about him, no one's even had his coffee yet, it doesn't hold a lot of credibility. And so this is very important when we talk about SEO, is because people can have the best looking website and they can do all their what we call on-page SEO, which is when you're essentially optimizing your website itself. Not talking about backlinks here, just on the website where you're saying, Google, I'm a cafe in Adelaide, and you're making it very clear to them and putting that, our appropriate words in the right spots. That's almost like an equivalent of the guy standing at the front of the cafe with a sign. Now, if all of a sudden you have an expert in coffee that comes in and has coffee at his place, he sits down, he drinks it, he gets on the radio, and so they're introducing, this is the world famous coffee maker, John, whatever his name is, and he drank it at the cafe. All of a sudden there's a buzz that starts to get created around that particular cafe, and then social proof starts to build. And so it works very similar in that sense with Google.
And is it true that Google still looks at plagiarism if you've got similar wording to another website? Do they look at originality?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so they've you've got to be really careful with making sure you don't have what's called duplicate content. What you're saying there, Grace, when you've got duplicate content to another website, it really only becomes an issue when you're ranking for the same keyword. Okay, so as in, if you got two websites and they're going for the same word, and Google knows that they know how old a particular page is, and they'll know how old a particular piece of content's been there. So whoever's got the oldest content, and if there's a duplicate, they're going to favor the person who had it first, essentially, right? And so the person who's done it after, that site's going to get penalized. So you want to make sure 100% that your content's unique from an on-page standpoint, especially when you've got especially if it's duplicate to somebody who you're competing against for a particular word. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to make it a bit obvious, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. So just go out there, write some unique content, and you'll be all good.
Yeah. So just changing the subject now.
Yeah.
So how many people do you have working in your company now?
So if we include all of our like team, because we've got a lot of team that work for us, interstate and also offshore. We don't outsource any of our SEO. It all gets done internally by the guys here, but we have certain parts of our process executed based on our instructions and systems. They work within our system. So if we add up the total amount, it'd be around the 25 to 30 people that are involved in the operation. But yeah, and here in Adelaide, we've got 6 of us here in Adelaide. Then we've got a couple over in Sydney, 2 or 3 in Sydney, and then we've got the rest sort of in overseas. Yeah.
So it's better that you've got your own team rather than sending it sort of.
Yeah, it's like I like to be in control with everything we're doing.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, so the systems are built by me, and so I've built the system, and essentially we'll have like a VA or a virtual assistant that will come in and they'll operate in one little tiny box of the system, and so they won't see everything else that's going on, and they'll have their own little box, and they'll have all their own SOPs and standard operating procedures that they follow, it works really great because not only are you paying, they love working, it gives them an opportunity to work, within a business. They get to work from home or an office, and obviously the wage is versus paying somebody's here in Australia, it makes the business a lot more profitable, and the work is actually higher quality, which is funny enough. Like we're paying less but getting higher quality work.
That's true.
It's a weird little shift, that when the people overseas, they really appreciate the work, and they're very, when a lot of people in Australia, they're very victim-like and, lazy. Like, I'm not saying everybody, but
overseas, I'd say they're happy to get the work. They feel blessed they've got the work, and they want to please you to make sure they do a good job.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's a win-win-win for everybody involved. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So I'd really advise anyone that has an online business that if there's certain parts of your process that you can potentially get into a system, like there's people out there that'll make your life a hell of a lot easier, and it'll really free your mind up to work on, things that are actually important. As I'm not saying they're not important tasks or anything like that, but I mean, it's like, I want to be able to focus on the broader scale of my business and be out of the doing and the mundane side of things of it.
You're organised.
Yeah, organised. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Come a long way from petroleum engineering.
Totally. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
So where to now for your company? Are you got any other ideas of growing in different areas, or what's happening there?
So Periscope Media, we're actually going through a full new rebrand right now. So we're about to relaunch our brand in about 3 or 4 weeks. So we went away to Kangaroo Island actually about a month or 2 ago and took the whole team down there for a retreat and really got clear on our mission, our purpose, and just getting a lot of clarity on that, and what the values we're standing on, and always really important to refresh that or define that in the first place. And so with us, we're just really focusing. We're actually building out a lot of new systems at the moment. So we're redesigning a lot of parts of our systems. We've really started to go hard with like HubSpot as a CRM over the last sort of couple of months. And so, but from a sales perspective, we're still focusing on Australia, but we're really making a big shift over to America. And so we're going to continue to grow that. We've got a really solid leadership group, here, like really solid group here in Australia, and based on the system I built, we can scale it quite radically without getting too many more people involved. And so, we've got Periscope, which is, the priority at the moment. And I've actually started up a finance company a couple of months ago as well. So doing like loans, that's a different part of the complete different business. and I've also got a few little e-commerce projects I'm working on as well. And so that's the business side. And in my other free time, I love like just learning about philosophy. Like that's where my, real, I guess, passion is in like philosophy. So
fantastic. And how old are you?
20. It just turned 26.
God bless you, Luke. 26 years old and all these things you've done already. That's just fantastic.
I appreciate it, Grace. Yeah.
Do you have anybody based in the States?
As in clients?
No. So as a part of the team?
No. We've got one person over in Santa Cruz. Yeah. So he does a bit of sales for us over in the US. And so he's got a nice American accent, so he can talk to our American clients. Yeah, so we've got him. But we're actually doing a lot of the selling just from here, just from Skype audio. So
amazing.
There's so much opportunity out there. If you can pick up the phone and talk to some people, it really starts to snowball if you can get in front of enough people.
Yeah. So with regards to COVID and all the recent events that have happened all over the world, but basically in Adelaide and Australia, what repercussions, what actually happened with regards to your business?
With us?
Were there any repercussions of that?
So the first week, I think it was like in the middle of March when everyone started to freak out here in Adelaide, and everyone was gone chaotic in the supermarkets and whatnot. And like when that sort of first happened, in the first week, we had a bit of a dip. I think we lost about 15% of revenue in a week, just people freaking out. And then it just stopped after a week. And it didn't. We thought it was going to continue to go down, like because we're relying on businesses, right? We're working with businesses, and so we had travel clients that just went out of business overnight. I think told you that when we spoke before, Grace, and just like we had a tour company in Uluru. And they were losing 50 grand a day, and it was just like ridiculous. And so like some people just got wiped out. But the sort of the good thing with us is with SEO, it's not like a quick fix. And so it's not just like Google Ads where you just switch it off and it's all good. You can turn it back on when you want. It's one of those things that you want to be there after COVID sort of wraps up. And so we sort of managed to really convince our clients that it's a good idea, and not to get them to stay on, but because it actually is a good idea for them to be there. And so we managed to grow. Now we've actually grown by like 30%. Like we've had the biggest 4 or 5 months of our company's ever had, and gone to a whole new level. And so the repercussions, I mean, we continue to grow, and I mean, I can't really foresee anything too dramatic happening. As long as the lockdown, like around Australia doesn't go back to the way it was and for a long period, if that continued to stay like that for a longer period, it would have been a bit of a worry. But time's going to tell, over the next couple of years as to the repercussions,
Yeah, this is a simplistic view, but I just see it as, especially here in Melbourne where it's still in lockdown, and obviously all the people that were working from home or lost their jobs and were home, they would have been Googling.
Correct. Yep.
I mean, that's a simplistic view, but they still would have been Googling to search what they want to search for. So
for sure, and same with like a lot of our e-commerce clients. People are no longer going to stores to get what they want. Like, I mean, obviously some people would still do, but like we've seen our e-com clients. Like I was looking at some of the traffic numbers like the other day, and it just skyrocketed. Throughout COVID, and so. It's people are spending a lot more time at home, on their phones, on their laptops, and so if anything, like I said, it's just made us stronger. So
sure did.
So it's going to be interesting to see how the next year or so goes, Grace, especially in Melbourne where you are, right now, where you guys have had the biggest hit in Australia, and so
we're just waiting on just to see what happens. People have got to take a long time to come back, but we're resilient. We'll do that. It's human nature, isn't it?
100%. We've got no choice but to be resilient, right?
That's right. You have no choice.
Have no choice. It's like either sit there.
That's what I say to my coaching clients. I just say, you know what? You have survived everything you've gone through up until now. You're talking to me.
Every issue. Yeah, and like every issue you've ever had, where is it? Like,
That's right.
right? Like in the past, all those things we used to worry about.
We need to move forward now. Let's move forward.
Totally.
That's the past. It has happened, and let's move forward. So,
Yeah.
speaking of moving forward,
Mm.
so what are your goals now? Do you have any specific major goals that you want to achieve for yourself or the company?
So we're in the multiple seven-figure range at the moment from a revenue standpoint. So multi-million-dollar company now. We over the next couple of years want to get that into the eight-figure range. So over the next sort of like 2 years. So from a company standpoint, that's where we want to go. Based on, obviously that's only based on fulfillments being agreed. Fulfillments, like our agreements being fulfilled, other way around. So, scaling the business, but maintaining that perfection quality, that perfection standard that we have. And so that's going to, whether we scale or not is going to determine on the quality of our system and our ability to fulfill on the client. So if it gets to a point where that's a bottleneck, then we're not going to continue to scale. Does that make sense? Like, as in, we're going to make sure we're always maintaining that perfection as our standard. And so, yeah, from a Periscope standpoint, that's where we're heading. And then I've got, obviously this really start to radically grow this finance company when I've got a bit more free time. It's actually doing quite well, but I haven't been able to devote like a lot of like resources to it yet, a lot of time, just because I've been so consumed with Periscope. And then outside of that is, like I said, this where I'm really passionate is about, philosophy, success philosophy, how do we actually win, at life. And as you know, David Mills, Grace, yeah, he's the number one person that I've, followed and listened to.
He goes very deep, doesn't he?
Yeah, it goes very deep, and his ideas are just, they're sound and they're true. You don't need to convince people. Like, it's not about convincing.
No.
It's about saying, like, here's truth, and you can see that for yourself. And so that's where I want to go. I want to be heading over to America, actually. As soon as I can get over to America with the borders and spend some time over there with Mike and David, and because that's where my real, like, I guess, overall overarching goal is to get that stuff out to the world. And so that's sort of he's got this model about, perfect world, which is, we have essentially zero bad ideas. And, there's just so much, I guess, bad ideas in the world right now, where people are, with government and people constantly getting their property invaded. And it's pretty, like, I won't go to the topic of government because it gets me quite fired up. Bit of a touchy subject. Like, there's so many ideas out there at large that are really bad, and so which need to be changed. And so that's sort of where I'll be heading at a later point in time.
It's all about clarity, having a really clear vision too of what you want to achieve.
100%.
Yeah.
It's really about life's about a lot of the time unlearning a lot of the BS that you got taught as a kid. Yeah. And so I mean, most of the time when we're growing up, we're sort of just looking around and seeing how other people are doing things, and we start to build our world model, based on that. And a lot of that just stays there throughout adulthood. And so for me, I'm always trying to constantly unlearn a lot of these arbitrary ideas that are in my world model, that can really lead people astray, and getting underneath a lot of it, getting out of the box, completely from, society and those really strong norms that are sort of pressing against us. And so it's,
we've been programmed since we were children. And by the time you're 6 years old, you start realizing. Before that, you would walk up to a cliff and fall over, right?
Yeah.
But after that, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. Do that over there. Do this over here. And we have this programming and we don't teach this goal setting and visualizing in schools. They don't teach this sort of thing, that, you have the ability to do this. Believe in yourself. You can do it.
And there's no method for thinking in school. As in, it's so bizarre. They teach you to memorize all this crap that you don't even use again. And what they're putting importance on in school is just so not important when it comes to actually being happy in life, and figuring out who you are. What are we doing here? How do we win? How do I actually, experience what I want to experience as a conscious being?
Yeah, ideas have shifted. The way
for sure.
we think now, it's a different type of thinking.
Yeah.
Teachers, all I remember in school are the ticks and the crosses. Actually, I remember the crosses, not the ticks. So it was focusing on, no, you've done that wrong, as opposed to, Grace, you've done such a great job with this, what you've done here, but let's just change this, right? Instead of doing that.
For sure. And another, I totally agree with you. And like another really big error that they do in school is they get you to focus on getting the answer. Okay. Now this is a really bad thing, like as opposed to like focusing on the understanding of what's happening. And so you get rewarded, for the answer. And so that I got really good at memorizing shit in school. Like I've got a really good memory and I got really good grades at school because I could memorize a lot. And so I had to really change the way I started to think when I got to university, where I was like, I need to start, really coming at this from an understanding standpoint. And that really started to help me change things a little bit. Still to an extent at university, they're still focusing on answers, but you've got to use a lot more method in order to get, the grades that you want to get to. And that's from a physical standpoint. When I say physical world standpoint, I mean that's from a standpoint of physics and mathematics and whatnot. But when it comes to the subjective world, which is dealing with your own mind, and when your mind is making you feel bad about certain things, like how do we navigate that? And so that's what is just not even spoken about ever in school. Like it's it's never spoken about. And so when I talk about what I want to do is we need to get in really early with kids and get them standing in the right place,
and to tell them that failure is not a bad thing, because especially with a lot of successful people that we know, we don't see all the failures that they had to get to where they are now. All we see is their success. We think it's overnight, but that's not the case. So you need to look at a failure as an opportunity for, all right, next time I'm not going to do it that way. We'll change the way we do it this time.
100%. And even just that idea, Grace, about failure, in order for, even with the way that I do SEO, I've got to do certain methods, right? And then if I'm not getting the feedback of success straight away, I just know that I've done something, I've got to tweak it. And so you always want to be looking for failure, because then you're closer to knowing.
That's
okay. Right. So when you're getting feedback that something isn't working, it's like, hell yeah. I've just crossed off another thing of what not to do. It's
actually an episode of one of my episodes of my podcast is about feedback.
Feedback. Yeah.
Accept the feedback. Don't get upset about it if it's bad feedback. Accept it. Do something about it.
Well, that's it. And even from a deeper level, when we've got our self-image, I guess, set up in such a way where we have these, and David Mills talks about this, and I've seen this quite a bit throughout my journey and still constantly work on these things, is that we often have our self-image, or the way we feel about ourselves, set up in a way where we want positive feedback. And if we don't get that positive feedback, then we might feel a bit dejected or not as confident to go out there and do what we want to do. And so, it's such an incorrect programming or way of operating, because it's just we have to get, in order for us to figure out knowing, we're going to have to figure out stuff that doesn't work. And so it's not failure. You can look at it as failure, but you can always look at it as progressing. It's actually progressing you.
Yes.
Yeah.
To get where I've got so far, I've had there's been a lot of roadblocks, a lot of hurdles I've had to jump over and go around, but you just persevere and keep going. And I'll give us another example is, if you're listening to this, Luke and I, we've been trying to get together for, how long has it been?
2 months, right?
Our first try, it was at the start of COVID, and we tried a couple of times to record, and he couldn't hear me, and then I couldn't hear him, and it was just, and then since then we've been trying to synchronize our watches and organize our diaries and we finally made it today. So
we did. Boom, we're here. How good.
Perseverance.
Success. Yeah, for sure. But
Yeah.
no, it's the feedback is an interesting topic. I could talk about that for hours and hours and
Oh,
hours.
yeah, absolutely.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
beautiful.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Luke. I
My
know
pleasure.
your busy schedule, and I'm
Mm,
looking forward to hearing, a lot more about you in the future.
mm.
If anybody wants to contact you, how do they do that, and what social media do you have?
I've actually just deactivated my Facebook profile pretty recently. So I'm actually just going off social media for a period just for focus. If they want to contact me, best would be luke@periscopemedia.com.au. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with me.
And the
Yeah, shoot me
website
an e-
is,
yeah, periscopemedia.com.au. Just head over there. There's a 1-300 number which goes to someone in the business. So if you can't get through to me through email, then it's another way to get through to me as well.
terrific.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Grace. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed the time here. Yeah.
It was great. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
All good. Thank you so much. Cheers.